Hi and welcome to my channel. I have done a few videos now about the transit system here in LA, like particularly for the specialized transit for people with disabilities, mostly because I am one. And I've seen a little bit about how it works, and I've recently got my application to get approved for it. So overall, in Ontario, do specialized transit regulations help to create a service that people with disabilities can use easily? Okay. And, well, what updates or changes should be put into effect sooner rather than later in order to make it better? So you can let me know what you think in the comments. And now let's start the discussion. One of my biggest pet peeves with accessible transit, this specialized accessible transit, is that it requires its users, it requires people with disabilities to provide medical documentation that they require the service. There is a form that we have to take and get a doctor, medical professional, to fill out, and then we have to submit that to the transit provider for their approval. And the form certifies that we, okay, individuals, have a disability or disabilities that prevent us from using regular transit, and that we cannot walk 500 feet or we are unable to get on a regular transit bus. Okay. They also ask small other things like how long the impairment is expected to last, just odd little bits and pieces, but that part of it is really irrelevant to the whole thing. Now, users also need to book the HandyLift bus as far in advance as possible for their transportation needs. Now, here in Elliott Lake, they ask for a minimum of 7 days, but 2 weeks is preferable, and 2 weeks has seemed to be the norm in other places in Ontario as well. Now, it's also expressly written on the application here in Elliott that they may not be able to accommodate your request for whatever reason, and so you would need to choose an alternate date. Okay. Now, accessible transit users are charged the same fare as patrons of the regular transit system, and I don't care about having to pay a fare. Services cost money, and I get that. But why are we being asked to jump through hoops? Prove you're disabled enough. Get it in writing for our records. I did that already when I applied for my disability pension and for the CRA disability tax benefit. And quite honestly, our medical information isn't the transit department's business. Okay. We also have to schedule our lives for the convenience of a bus. So, in order to use the HandyLift, we're asked to make medical and other appointments, including shopping, at least 2 weeks in advance, and then maybe not be accommodated. So, we pay the same fare as able-bodied transit patrons. What hoops do they have to jump through to get service? This is what I have a problem with. The next point I'd like you to consider is that, as I understand it, the city bus service is owned by the municipality, making them the obligated organization. They may outsource for drivers or locations or other bits and pieces, but that does not negate their responsibility when it comes to mandated accessibility training. So the AODA integrated regulations give a clear understanding of what training needs to be done and who is responsible for making sure that it happens. Training that all employees and volunteers, the people who are involved in developing the organization's policies, and all the other people who are involved in providing goods or services or facilities on behalf of the organization. So, for example, if they contract out to another provider for the handy lift service. So here, Huron Lodge handles the handy lift bus. Okay, so like that. So that what they need to be trained in includes accessibility standards for the regulation and on the Human Rights Code, and that is as it pertains to people with disabilities. Okay, and the training courses cover topics geared towards the duties of the people that are being trained, right? And they are meant to be ongoing to keep up to date with any changes. Records of who has been trained and when also need to be kept. So, in addition to the standard training, which was just mentioned, right, the service providers for both the conventional and the specialized transit need to provide more detailed training for things like the safe use of the accessibility equipment and features that are on each bus, and like what would be an acceptable solution for a temporary problem, a temporary issue, like, for example, a blocked bus shelter, which could be blocked either by construction. They could be digging a hole right in front of it, and that would not be great to stop in front of it, right? Or perhaps by snow. Now, this too is more in line for the conventional service that, although on arrival at a location, the specialized transit bus may run into these things as well. Or perhaps there's a mechanical breakdown. Perhaps the wheelchair lift doesn't work, or perhaps the entire bus broke down. So they need to know and be trained in how to handle specific problems that could arise. Not necessarily what the solution is, but at least the criteria for making a decision. And I think that is probably far more important than almost anything else, because you never know what you're going to run up against. So in an emergency situation, you should be prepared. Did you know that there's supposed to be an accessibility plan for both conventional and specialized transit, if specialized transit is offered in your city? And did you know that the service provider is obligated to have at least one annual meeting in public involving people with disabilities regarding that plan? It ensures that we are able to provide feedback into a plan that directly affects us. And we go all the way back to the beginning of training, where they learn what all of those things are and what the Human Rights Code says about people with disabilities, so on. Okay. And there's a saying, and it applies here. Nothing about us without us is for us. And so it is right in the regulations that we need to be there. We need to be consulted. I think it's kind of nice. I've put the link for the AODA Integrated Regulations Guide in this video, so that you can go ahead and go there and have a deeper read of the things that are on. The three things that I wanted to concentrate on here were what the city expected of the users of the system, then what the regulations actually asked the organization to do as far as training the individuals who are going to be both on regular and specialized transit. And then beyond that, what the expectations were for the city to gain input on how their transit system was doing by having meetings with the users, and all of this being mandated. So there is a lot of information there to consider, and I would really like to know what you think and what your ideas are as to how things could change, how they could be modified even. For myself, to give you an example, I would want to know why, if the handy lift bus is either broken down or booked, why isn't there another one that can handle the overflow? Like, why do we have to take on a whole sort of thing of like, oh, well, can't go today. It's very hard to cancel medical appointments that way. But all right, that's one, just an example for you to think about. And I hope that you will let me know these things in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please think about giving it a like. And thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.